So, you're one of the chosen few, one of those able to not only comprehend the Animist class for Pathfinder 2e, but also really want to play one because you love the idea of playing a spellcaster, juggling 3 different spell lists that you cast using 3 different resources. Well, first off, good for you, proud of you. Claps all around. Second off, you must be hoping, boy, the Animist is such a cool, complex class. Surely they've got some cool, complex feats to help augment. They are the same as all other spellcasters with limited feat selection, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, they are. It's not that their feats aren't cool, it's just that they're very, very reminiscent of all the other basic full spellcaster feat lists, with some exceptions. Namely, the exceptions that are pretty much going to be populating this entire top 5 Animist feats list in this video. I want to give a huge shout out to all the members of the No Net One's Patreon page. If you'd like to get your name on this list supporting the channel, there's a link in the description where you can click the thing to 510 money to me, and then I get rent and you get another video. Did I just have a stroke? I really do wish I was exaggerating in my opening bit. The Animist has a ton of potential for really cool ideas for feats to expand what they can already do, but I think Paizo probably got scared that they would make an already complicated class even more complicated by giving them fancy feats, not to be confused with the cat food, that they decided to keep them relatively simple and unimpressive. But I've picked a few that I think really stand out to me as my top 5 Animist feats, but I do want to start with a dishonorable mention. And this is a dishonorable mention for what I believe to be the single most useful Animist feat in the entire game. If you want to know why it's getting dishonorably mentioned, you can watch my 5 tips video yesterday, because it's Circle of Spirits. I already talked about it yesterday, I don't need to go at length. Circle of Spirits, it's way too good. It should be part of the class's entire base kit. It should not be set to just a subclass or forced to be taken as a future feat by other subclasses. I don't like this feat's design. Make it part of the core class kit. Anyway, let's get to my actual list here. I want to start off with a level 12 feat that's just really useful. You know how much I love giving a reaction to classes that don't typically have or use their reactions for anything, and the Animist's Whispers of Warning is absolutely incredible if it works. It's simple. As a reaction, once per 10 minutes, if you would be hit by an attack, the attacker re-rolls the attack and uses the lower result. It's important to note you can't use this on a critical hit, unfortunately, so at best you're going to turn a normal hit into a miss, or the normal hit will stay a normal hit. Thankfully, because they take the lower result, you can't accidentally turn a hit into a critical hit. The downside is that even if it fails and they just turn their hit and it stays a hit, it does still go on the once per 10 minute cooldown. For a level 12 feat, I don't exactly know how powerful this is, but it is a good feeling to be able to just look your GM in the eyes, or rather in your camera because we're all playing online, and saying, no, you re-roll that. I don't feel safe. You rolled a 19, re-roll that please. Well, you're an Animist. A 19 on the die probably would have crit you. You rolled a 14. Reroll that, please. You know, the more that I think about this feat is not that useful on a class that doesn't have great armor proficiency, huh? And to interject with the list a little bit, a reason so many of these feats didn't make my list in the first place is because they're all locked behind certain apparitions. And yes, you can use any apparition regardless of what kind of Animist you're playing. You can swap apparitions every single morning, but I don't like the idea of taking a feat that you can only use while channeling specific apparitions. That doesn't feel great, because if you need different apparitions for a day, that means that feat is useless that entire day. So Jester's Gamble, Forest Heart, Shadows Within Shadows, Apparition Cloud, all of those require you to have a specific type of apparition channeled, and I just don't like that design. It's a weird way of funneling an Animist to using the same apparitions every single day, even though the entire point of the class's identity is to swap apparitions based on what you need that day. But if you took the feats that can only be used with the Volcano lore apparitions, you are always going to use that apparition, which is a viable way to play an Animist. As an Animist in a game I'm running who just uses the same 2 apparitions every day, but that's just because they don't want to deal with other apparitions swapping spell lists and focus spells, and so they worked it into their lore and it works out. You're still a useful character, but the general vibe of the Animist to me is that it's a completely malleable spellcaster who can change their spell list based on the day ahead, and telling them, but you should use these apparitions because you took this feat, just feels counterintuitive. That was a rant and a half. Moving on to feat number 4. Y'all, I don't like doing this. I forgot this was my number 4 until I read my script. Y'all, I feel like this more than anything goes to show how few Animist feats really resonated with me, because my 4th favorite Animist feat is just Echoing Channel. Again. You know, the feat that I gave the Cleric because it upgrades your 2-action heal and harm spells to auto-cast a 1-action heal or harm spell to a nearby target? It's just... And yet, this is a worse version of the feat than it is for the Cleric, because for no real discernible reason, they added a feat prerequisite, a level 2 feat that you need in order to be allowed to take this level 18 feat. The Cleric version does not have a prerequisite, but for some reason, the Animist needs embodiment of the balance at level 2 to take this level 18 feat to upgrade their heal and harm spells. Y'all, I'm trying not to be negative. You know I don't like to be negative, but golly, it's still a great feat. Don't get me wrong, even with the feat tax, it's worth it if you're using heal and harm. It's an amazing upgrade, but especially coming off the Barbarian video where I said I can't give them Intimidating Strike, I gave it to the Fighter. I'm immediately changing the rules because Echoing Channel, I think, is one of my favorite Animist feats. Would I prefer, while channeling a specific apparition, to deal 1d6 fire damage as a reaction at level 6? No. No, I would not. But at least my top 3 Animist feats, good news, they're actually really cool. These are feats I think are fantastically designed, super flavorful. They play into the spirit channeling aspect of the Animist in a way that I think does exemplify the class identity, and I love it. So let's get right into my 3rd favorite Animist feat, Spirit's Sacrifice. As a free action, whenever you would die, not just going unconscious, die as in you reach dying 4 and your character would cease to be, you can instead immediately disperse one of your attuned apparitions, and not only do you just not die, you only go to Wounded 1. If you were Wounded 3 when you died, you go back to Wounded 1, and you heal equal to double your level 36 hit points back immediately. The downside is that you can no longer use that attuned apparition, but guess what? You're level 18. I think you have 4 apparitions attuned per day right now, and there's no cooldown on this, meaning every single time you die, as a free action, you just say, nah, I'm good, I'm not gonna die, and in fact, I'm less wounded than I was when I almost died. This is actually insane, because it's not like you only get 1 apparition back per day. By taking this feat, you, the Animist, can fully die 4 times per day without even risking potential permanent death. And sure, it's level 18, it should be that powerful. I just think that's wild. That is one of the strongest anti-death mechanics I've ever seen. And to make it an even stronger anti-death mechanic, it doesn't even have anything saying it can't undo the death trait. If you get disintegrated by the disintegrate spell, which says they die immediately, you can survive that with Spirit Sacrifice. The spirit unattunes itself and magically glues all your atoms back together. My 2nd place Animist feat isn't exactly powerful, it's on here strictly for the roleplay potential that comes with it, and that's unfortunately another level 1 feat similar to Circle of Spirits that is given for free to one subclass, but can be taken by any Animist, and I do think it's worth taking at higher levels for the roleplay opportunity alone. I'm talking about Apparition Sense. Just by taking this feat, you get a 30-foot imprecise sense that lets you know if there is a spirit or haunt or otherwise incorporeal undead nearby. But beyond that, there's a huge paragraph about everything this feat can do, namely, by spending 10 minutes, if you are actively communing with a spirit and its original dead body, the spirit can flow through you, the Animist, reuniting with its dead body. This doesn't return it to life or anything, but the soul can at least inhabit the dead body and then speak through that dead body so long as you're touching it. That's so cool. They can technically even speak if you don't have their body, just as long as they are in contact with you, the Animist. And the coolest thing that this could be used for an entire story plot point in a campaign is if something else is currently possessing the body. They don't even necessarily need to be undead. If somebody's soul was shunted from their body and something else was possessing them and walking around with their body, if you get 10 minutes with that body and the original spirit, you can try to funnel the spirit back into the body, and with a will save from the possessor, if they fail, they, the possessor, are shunted out of that body and the original soul returns. This is super cool. It's not a strong feat, but it is a campaign-defining feat, and I bet there are going to be stories told where because this feat came up, they were able to remove a possession in a totally unique way using a mechanical class feature, and that's super cool. Even if it's niche, that is enough to get Apparition Sense up to my second favorite Animist feat. I suppose it also just says a lot about my opinion on a lot of other Animist feats. And honestly, I bet nobody's going to guess what my number one Animist feat is ahead of time. You might have ideas in your own mind, but chances are you weren't thinking that my favorite Animist feat was Grasping Spirits. That's so hard to say. This is basically reach spell. For one action as a spell shape, if your next action is to cast a spell, you increase its reach by 30 feet, or if its range was touch, it gains a range of 30 feet. That's already really useful. Reach spell has always been good, but Grasping Spirit spell is special, and there's a reason it can only be used once per 10 minutes. If this spell hits, the target makes a fortitude save against your spell DC, and if they fail, they are yanked 30 feet towards the Animist. You do this with something like Frostbite with a 60-foot range, and there's a barbarian 30 feet in the middle between you and the enemy. Cool. You hit them with Frostbite, you lower their movement speed, and you drag them 30 feet. This is where it's most useful. The Animist is not an upfront caster. They don't want to bring an enemy face to face with themselves, or they will die. What you want to do is be about 60 feet away from the target with a barbarian, a fighter, anybody, any martial character standing in the middle where you can just yank the target up to your ally. It does suck that this comes with a saving throw, and if they make the saving throw, it does still go on cooldown, but there's something so neat about being able to augment any of your spells to gain a 30-foot disposition. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Displacement, that's the word. I know the English language. A 30-foot displacement is insane. At level 2, that's wild. And keep in mind, this doesn't need to be aggressive either. If you want to cast a 2-action heal because your friend's unconscious body is in the fire, then you can spell shape that heal. I need a heal spell. With Grasping Spirits spell, heal your ally, and then I feel like most GMs would rule it this way. If your ally is unconscious, they're going to automatically fail that fortitude save, and your spirits drag your ally 30 feet towards you, and they get the full benefit of the heal spell. Think about how cool that would be. Your ally's unconscious in a burning building, they're going to die from persistent damage, and you're able to yoink them out of there to safety while also restoring hit points. Grasping Spirit spell is my favorite kind of feat because there is an infinite number of ways to make proper use of it. Those are the feats I love the most. It's fun to have a feat that just has you do A and then A happens, but I love when it says, yeah, you can do anything from A to Z, and this will augment the effects of A through Z, leading to any number of possible situations where this feat can come in clutch. That's it though. Those are my top 5 Animist feats. This was the hardest top 5 feat list to write because so many of them are so situational, or they just exist for every spellcaster. I didn't even feel good putting Echoing Channel on this list. Animist is a fun class. It does have a lot going for it, but like most spellcasters, what it has going for it is baked into the base class, so the feats aren't super exciting. But what do you think? Are there any feats that I overlooked that you think are way better than the ones I listed? Am I totally in the wrong? Do you think I smell bad? Leave me a comment. I really, really appreciate it. I love all the support I've gotten all month. Another huge shout out to all the members of the Patreon. My brain shut down. Don't cut any of that. Leave that all in. The names kept going. You know what this is. You know what they are. You know the video's over.